the opposite of fast food. And when we are talking about slow food, we talk, many people mention it to be the grandmother's diet. And when you talk about grandmother's diet, everyone remembers about cassava, everyone remembers about washe, doma, and indigenous vegetables generally. Yeah? And you know, grandmothers, they used to know how to make use of locally available resources. Like for example, when you want to fry something, they used to use animal fats. And they could use the cream, milk, fats to prepare some food. And at the end of it, all these foods used to be very healthy. And therefore, generally, we promote food biodiversity. And this means that we promote locally available, local foods that has been produced using organic means. And where do we start? As slow food, we started on issues to do with reviving what is getting lost, and we started with our oldest project we call Arc of Taste. And Arc of Taste is an online catalog where we document food products, crop varieties, and animal breeds that are at risk of disappearing. FAO has been talking about between 1900 and 2000. We had lost approximately 75% of the foods that were domesticated by man when he settled down 10,000 years ago. And that means we remained with 25%. And people are not really serious to save what has remained. And we took upon slow food to work on produce animal breeds and crop varieties that are at risk of disappearing. And this was actually we could go to experts, to old farmers who have got local knowledge, indigenous knowledge. And we could ask them what produce you used to use that at risk of disappearing. Then they could tell us what is disappearing. And this was ranging from one community to the other. For example, I can give you an example with this. This is Ushuru wa Mukio. And Ushuru wa Mukio, this was among the Kikuyu, and also the Meru, the Emu, and the like. But people no longer consume this, and even if it is consumed in very small quantities. It's because people now fancy coffee, they fancy tea, they fancy other drinks rather than the traditional drinks. So we documented that, and we started also asking the people to start growing the ingredients used to make that porridge. And from there, also the process of making that, and also cooking it and also tasting. So we are doing this to bring back what is getting lost. And for example, I can also talk about this. This is a red banana, locally known as Agroecology. It's a banana that used to be grown in Kenya many years ago. But now people want tissue culture banana. They want money. But when you compare the nutrition content in these indigenous bananas compared to the tissue culture bananas, they are very different. The nutrition content of this is very high. And when we lose these, first we lose the name. Second, we lose the nutrition content. And thirdly, we lose the culture that revolves around this food, because in Kenya, we know the communities, we have 43 communities, and every community is associated with a certain food products that they actually involve during different ceremonies, be it naming ceremony, be it marriage ceremonies, be it initiation ceremonies. These foods are always used there. And then again, the other part that we really dwell on is on production part of it. We have a project called 10,000 Gardens in Africa. In other words, we call it Slow Food Gardens, and we try to promote agroecology. We train students, young kids also in schools, through CBCs as well, and they are really appreciating it because the government want the children to learn by doing, and nurturing that young mind. It is becoming very important, because when they grow up, they will know how to go about it, and that's where they learn about for example, when we want to deal with pests, for example, they learn about integrated pest management. When we want to make sure that people are having healthy soils, they learn about making the soil fertile.
So what's the future of indigenous food?
The future of indigenous is there, and is there because we are working with the farmers growing these indigenous foods. We are trying to bring it back, and little by little it's working. And then again, we are also working with indigenous communities who are the custodians of these particular foods that I'm talking about over here. And the future is bright, I must say, because from where we started, we have seen some changes. We have seen impacts of the communities working on this.
Kenya is the blink of allowing GMO maize to be planted by farmers. What's your take on that? And what's the risk, if any? And would you allow that to happen as a farmer?
I would say that Kenya lifted the ban, but I think the case is still in the court. It's not yet decided whether it's going to be there or not. But my take is this: I believe that the multinationals bringing the GMOs, they were there with the hybrids. Hybrids have been produced for far too long. I don't know why they don't see the hybrids working for them to feed Africa, because generally they are saying because we don't have enough food, the answer is the GMO. I like to say that when we don't have maize in Kenya, we always say that people are hungry. But who said that we can only eat maize? Maize came from Mexico. What did Africans use to eat? We had our own food. We have cassavas. We have yams. We have arrowroots. We have many different kinds of food that we can always diversify and eat rather than focusing on maize alone. And again, on the same issue, maize has been localized since then when maize came to Kenya. And some communities used to have their own maize. Like for example, we can see we have Gedigo maize over here, and Gedigo used to be known to be a variety of maize that many Kikuyus adopted. And from this, we started shifting to the hybrid. The importance of this is because you can grow it this season, you can grow it in the next season and another, because there is when we have the culture of saving these seeds. But for the hybrids, we need to go back to the agrobet, year in, year out. Same thing for the GMO. There is what we call the intellectual property rights. You don't have the right to save that seed and grow it again. If that happens, then again you find yourself in problems. And then again, the reason as to why I see there is a risk of introducing these GMOs to be grown in Kenya is because of contaminations. They're talking about when you grow GMO maize in this area over here, you should have 200 meters space between this field and the other. Kenya, we have very small lands. Like for example in central Kenya, the fragmentation of land is rampant, and the sizes of land that these people have in central Kenya. And you can tell me this: when you have to have that space of 200 meters, what will you remain with? You cannot grow anything, and if you grow it, you will continue contaminating the indigenous varieties that you have. So the biodiversity, the diversity of our local maize will be at risk. That's one main thing that will affect. And Kenyans without maize, we always say that we are hungry.